2025 is here, and we are on the road to Gears of War E-Day. Hello, Gears and Gaming fans. Happy New Year. I am your weary host, KDB, and welcome to Gears Intel, a fan show talking all things Gears of War and Gears of War adjacent. We are back after a little bit of a unplanned hiatus, but as always, I am joined by the other legs of my Gears Intel tripod. First, his level of gaming knowledge is matched only by his infamy on threads as a well-known photographer of snow. He may always ache from a rigorous CrossFit session, but I'm hoping he's feeling fresh for the new year, ready to break cover and take on the topic of multiplayer gaming. It is David Smiley. How are you, David?
I am good. I am not fresh. I forgot we were covering this podcast today, so I am both not fresh, sore from the gym. I am like a rabbit in headlights trying to pull my brain together ready for a podcast, and slightly worried about the state of the coghole because it's been a while since we've been down there. It's not a nice place anyway.
You're not wiped for a while.
Not wiped for a while. It is going to smell. I hope we've got some hazmat suits to put on. Otherwise, yeah, it's going to get funky down there.
Fabulous. And Of course, as always, here to class up the show with his demure and elegant approach to gaming analysis. The only thing he likes more than collecting overpriced Japanese versions of games is showing Gen Z a thing or two about how it's done in Gears of War as he takes a lancer to their face in a few rounds of King of the Hill. It is Alex Aldridge. How the hell are you, Alex?
Good day, sirs. I'm well. I've just been out in what should have been snow, but has already turned to mushy rain. So that was fun. First proper experience for my daughter. Hey, look at the snow! It's not snow. It's just ice.
It's just black ice.
I still
don't step on it.
Still threw some at her anyway. Just have some of that anyway.
Lovely. Yeah, it's pretty shitty where I live at the moment. Yeah, feeling very wintry and grim. Perfect weather to sit inside and record a podcast. So that's all good.
You know it. Good to be back.
It is good to be back. Yes, as I said, it was a bit of an unplanned hiatus, but we are back and we're starting off strong. There we go. I've overhyped the episode now. Today's episode, so this is kicking off our year with a little bit of a chat about multiplayer specifically. Now, with Gears of War E-Day due to come out like at an unspecified point in the future, we wanted to have a think about how its multiplayer mode can survive in the age of live service, game shutdowns, and people like us with busier schedules than ever. Which is something that's sort of come up on the show, I think, a couple of times in the past. But just to get us back in the frame of mind, to get us on the road to E-Day, that's what we're going to talk about today. Before we get to that, though, just to make sure everybody's okay and a bit of a catch-up, David, how was your Christmas and New Year? Is everything good? How are you?
Christmas and New Year was lovely. Got to play some video games, enjoyed that. Spent time with the family, which was fine, I guess. And yeah, it was a lovely old time. Thank you.
And then he got to return to video games again afterwards once it was all over.
I did, yeah. Just
light at the end of the tunnel.
Got yanked out of my comfy hole of video games. Had to spend some time with people.
Those who created you.
Yeah,
and then,
yeah, I quite enjoyed the picture we got on Christmas Day of you in your festive turkey hat.
Oh yes,
looking like you're having the time
I had
of your
a
life.
few mulled wines by that point. Yeah,
fabulous. I also spent time.
Put it on screen now, Kelsey.
Yes, I'm gonna. I also spent time with the family, which was also fine. And I'm fresh off an excursion to Devon, which is where I saw in the new year. I was pretty much disconnected from like phone signal and internet for 3 days, which was actually really good. The nearest shop was like a 15-minute drive away as well, and if you wanted to get there, you had to drive on Devon roads, which if either of you have been that way, I mean, I don't know how they really pass for roads, to be honest. So while I enjoyed it, I was very happy that I didn't live there, and we could get home and relax. And I still had a few more days off. I don't go back to work till tomorrow, so that's good. But yes, also playing video games. I had a period while I was away where I didn't play games for like 4 days, but my kid took the Switch and he's playing Super Mario Odyssey, which he's absolutely loving. So my evenings have been spent gathering coins for him on Super Mario Odyssey in Balloon World, just so he can buy all the shit from the shop, which is like his main priority in life right now.
Interesting.
But then I've come back.
I knew that feature was for someone.
Yeah, I know, and I've never used it until now, so it's come in handy like 4 years later. And then, yes, came home and treated myself to Cyberpunk 2077 with my Christmas money. So I finally dived into that game.
What are you thinking of this? Because this is a game that, because of my sort of Witcher 3 fandom, has been perpetually on my I need to play this because I think I might love it since they fixed it list.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah. Now, I love Witcher 3 too, and I've held off for the updates, which, and everybody says, oh, it's much better now and they fixed everything. But I've always had this thing where I need to wait till I can commit because I presume it's going to be like a 40, 50, maybe even more, 60 plus hour experience. And I was like, right, I've cleared everything, finished all the stuff before Christmas. Let's finally dive in. And so I'm only like 3 hours into it, but so far so good. I just need to see if I can, stick with it through the rest of January. But yeah, it's good so far. And it's running smooth. Although I did have this really weird bug where right at the start, you're getting like an implant. And the character was clearly supposed to have like the tool to do an implant. But the tool was invisible for like the whole 5 minutes of the cutscene. So they were just like moving around this invisible thing. And like all the particle effects of sparks and stuff were appearing. But the machine wasn't there. So it's fixed, but not completely fixed. Yeah.
I know you're talking about bugs there. Sorry to interrupt. It just put into my mind an amazing bug I had. I've just finished playing Metro 2033, and there was an interesting one there where they've like redone the lighting and stuff like that in the game, so they're meant to give you proper shadows and stuff like that. And for some reason, the shadow effects that my character was getting was like, I don't know what you call it in video game parlance, but like when it's just like the strings. So I basically like there was a skeleton just running around instead of a human.
Just a nervous system.
It was so good. Sorry, I'll let you get back on track.
Just quickly before I pass to Alex, I know you both finished Indiana Jones. The most hilarious bug I had in that game is you can do the zip lines. There's a point in the later games where Gina is with you and you can do the zip lines. And I've got a clip of it, which I'll insert into this podcast. Rather than her holding onto my back, she was just stood next to me, standing straight, like coming along parallel.
That's a good one.
And she's a teleporter.
Yeah.
She's a witch.
She gets out of that boat really quickly. Yeah. It's funny because my wife was watching me play it and she never really comments on the games, but she was like, oh, she didn't wait for you, did she, when you get out of the boat?
Well, yeah, she is. That video that we watched for When It Was You of Mr. X in Resident Evil 2 remake and how he like zips through rooms off in the distance.
Yeah.
She's just doing it right behind you.
Yeah.
She's keeping it local.
With splashing effects following her everywhere she goes.
Yeah.
She's like, should they make that big song and dance about her being scared of water, and then she eventually gets in the boat after having already been in a boat, and then they just never mention it again. It's an odd thing
also
to
noticed
do.
That. I had that exact same audio bug that you had, Alex, as well, where he kept repeating the same line over and over again. Or one of you had it. I don't know if you both had it, but yeah.
Yeah, Indy and her were repeating conversation, but for David, it was just her shouting. That was close.
Oh, yeah. I didn't have that one, but I did laugh when I heard about that, because that sounds much worse.
God. Yeah.
Cool. Yes, Alex, how was your New Year and Christmas?
Christmas was really good. Much like you guys, saw the family, got some video game presents. Didn't really play a lot. There's just so many family elements. You have about 6 Christmases once you get to a certain age and you've got kids and everybody else has got kids and whatever, and your wife's families and your families and stuff. New Year, we went to this place called Wimpole in Cambridge, which has like a really awesome light show.
Wimpole.
So it's like an estate. It's like a country estate, and you basically just walk through this massive estate. It's like a 90-minute walk. And they have all these like installations from different artists in each part of the estate. So they have like
I'm
a
sure
giant
you live
tree
in like a
covered
Jane
in
Austen
lights.
book, Alex.
Yeah,
See, the place
it's so
name,
whimsical down here,
the
mate.
The place names that you whip out are just like, let's make up an English name of a place.
A Wimpole, yeah. It still doesn't beat Biggleswade, but
was it Steeple Bumpstead? Is another one that's pretty good.
That's not far from me. Yeah, Steeple. Yeah. That was fun. We did that on New Year's sort of Eve. So my father-in-law usually comes over for New Year's Eve, and then so we did that. We got home, put the kid to bed, and then just went through the weird process where you're a man approaching 40, where you get your wife's dad over and you sit there just watching shit, and then like genuinely midnight hits. 3 seconds later, he's like, right, okay, I'm off. I'll see you later. Thanks for having me. I was like, why did we do that? Why didn't we just have him over for dinner and then go to bed? What? I don't. Why did we sit and watch Jules Holland and some people I've never heard of for half an hour in his pre-recorded thing that he did in mid-December anyway? And then, I don't get what New Year is all about anymore. It's just I should ignore it. I don't know why we sit there getting tired and then go, let's go to bed then.
I remember there at least being some sort of interesting television on at New Year, and now I can't find anything.
Yeah, those days are gone. Yeah.
What do people do at New Year now? Like, what do they watch?
We watched Mortimer and Whitehouse do some fishing, but it was like 2023's one anyway. Yeah. So, watching 60-year-old men fish on New Year's Eve.
Thing. Yeah, okay.
Glimpsing into your future.
Probably.
Fabulous. Well, I'm glad you both had a nice break. Like I say, we're back after our hiatus.
Oh, if you want to know, are we still doing what we did gaming-wise?
Yeah, go for it.
I jumped in. Well, what actually have I done? Oh, I played quite a lot of Wild Bastards, which I think I mentioned on different podcasts, which is like a kind of like a roguelike. It's like you have like a crew of robot cowboys, and you're basically trying to make it through parts or planets one at a time, following like a story arc. It's not completely randomized or anything. When you land on a planet, I'm pretty sure what's on each part of it will be randomized. You drop down to a specific part, and you have to basically just go across what looks like a Mario world map. There'll be, even with like the little Hammer Bros style moving dudes, there's like moving gangs, there'll be roadblocks, so you enter into duels, you fight them, you have to collect things and then get off the planet before these bounty hunters come after you. It's made by the guys who did Void Bastards, so it's if anyone's played that, they'll kind of know what to expect from the gunplay. That's quite cool. And then since then, I've been trying to finish off Yakuza 5. I was on the Video Game Hall of Fame. I was asked by one of the listeners in an email how far through it I was, and I think I said I was like 2/3 or 3/4 of the way through it. That wasn't true. I'd played 70 hours, and I was only on chapter 3 out of 5. It is so long. But I mean, I really like it. There are a lot of people who say that game is far too long. It is very, very long, but I haven't really felt that it doesn't justify it wholly every time, because you're playing as a different character for each chapter. So at the moment, I'm playing as like a disgraced former baseball player, and now it's forcing me to engage with the baseball mechanics of the game to try and like up his baseball stats for some reason. And there's lots of sub stories around ex-pitchers who hate him because he cost them something in the past, and now they have to like see if you can hit one of their pitches or they'll kill him. It's great. Yeah, I'm enjoying it.
It's good progress though.
I need to catch up.
So if you're on 5, isn't that only 3 to go until you're up to date?
Rest of 5, 6.
Yeah.
Then the man who erased his name, Infinite Wealth.
Yeah.
And then Pirate in February. Which hopefully I could just jump into without needing to be in order. I might make an exception for that and play Pirate and then go.
Yeah, because it's like a little
spin-off to another one.
Okay, cool.
Because I filled all the interims with like Judgment and Lost Judgment and Ishin and the zombie ones. So I've played loads. The main ones, they get diluted with all the spin-off stuff.
Yeah.
The bloody Fist of the North Star one. Yeah, crazy.
So yeah, you might get to Infinite Wealth in 2027 at this rate.
Indeed. Yes. And David and I have also played a lot of Space Marine 2 together, which we're both quite surprised hasn't been a potential subject for this podcast.
Yeah. So I was torn. I was going to buy that or Cyberpunk, and I should have bought Space Marine. I mean, I still got like 20 quid left, so I put that towards it and finally get it. But I'm going to play Cyberpunk for a bit, and then I think that will probably be on my agenda. Maybe we can do it for
You've got to go with your mood, right? Like, because Space Marine 2, like Cyberpunk is going to be this probably like beautiful narrative experience, and like Space Marine 2 so far is very, very visually striking and does look great. But like it's less about like, oh, what's going to happen next, and it's more just like screaming at the top of your voice because you just yanked someone's head off of their spine and threw it away. It's just just
not an exaggeration.
Yeah. No, I'm into it, and I think that's definitely next on the list, and we'll do a Gears-like episode on it at some point.
Yeah, we should.
If you like Viscera, you'll like this.
Yeah,
we love a bit of Viscera.
I've got some stuff to bring up about that later on, so
Cool.
we'll have a few more things to say about that.
Fabulous. Before we get to the main talking points of multiplayer, we do, believe it or not, have some news. David, the aforementioned stinky coghole. Over to you.
Oh, it's stinky.
While he does it, just
stinky.
before he gets too far into this, I need to go turn the heating off because I am dripping with sweat.
Yeah.
I've gone too far the other way, lads.
Yeah.
I'll be back in a second.
It just sat there like that meme of from Key and Peele where there's sweat dripping down his forehead. Yeah, I was so close to getting Space Marine. I was like,
That's great.
I was just like, well, I could play Space Marine. That's not probably a 40-hour thing. And I was like, I could play that anytime. I need to get started on Cyberpunk. So I took the plunge on that. And
I think you've made the right choice.
I also, on CD Keys, got it for like 30 quid, the ultimate edition. So
Yeah.
I was like, I'll get it now because I'm probably not going to find it cheaper than that. So
Yeah, I feel like you've got to. It's going to, in years to come, if I don't get my finger out and get to that game, it's going to be like like in questions like what's a big hole in your gaming backlog?
Yeah, it'll be that. Yeah.
Or like that one. Control is another one for me that I need to get to sooner rather than later.
Need to get to
That's on offer right now on PlayStation, I believe.
Yeah, probably
I don't
like
know
a
if it's on
fiver
Game
or something,
Pass.
isn't it? It's super cheap. David, over to you for the coghole.
Yes. Oh yes, we're climbing into the cogholes. Yeah, just hold your nose, folks. It's going to be dank and fusty down here, but
Oh, that's going to be the fucking thumbnail, isn't it, what I just did?
So
Timestamp it.
there it goes. Yeah, so as reported on GameSpot back in November. I was going to say back in November. That feels very recent, but I guess it's like 2 months ago almost.
Yeah.
Anyway, yes. Rod Ferguson has essentially blurted out what he saw as the whole planned story for Gears of War 6. I was looking through it, and sort of the big thing for me seems to be that they were wanting to take Gears of War off planet.
Yeah.
Into space. What do you guys think about that? I don't know how I feel about that.
So, yeah, I suppose my initial... Basically what he says is... And this was on an IGN podcast.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
They were talking to him. When you play Gears 5, they're kind of seeding this with like the Russian... Or it's not Russian, is it? It's the UIR, like rockets and stuff. And
It's Russian inspired.
Yeah,
Russian.
yeah. And they're sort of planting the seeds for the future, potentially like space travel. And when I heard this, first of all, I was massively surprised that he even said it, like, because this stuff, they're usually super secretive, and we don't know if this is potentially still the route they might go in the future, or if, or whatever, but...
He did say that they may just go ahead and scrap all of his ideas anyway,
Yeah,
so...
yeah. My initial reaction was kind of, and I think I tweeted this at the time, trepidatiously intrigued, because although I think it presents a lot of potential... and fresh ideas, going to space, allowing you to expand. I don't hate the concept, but like executing that can be really difficult. And I always want to see a franchise develop. I always want to see Gears develop. But once you start going to space, and I can see how space travel could work for Gears, but once you make that leap, I mean, you're taking your feet off the ground. And I think despite Gears of War being this story that's about global collapse, the collapse of the human race and stuff, it's always... close-knit. It's about the family story, it's about the brothers and stuff like that, and
It's about chest-high walls which aren't in space.
Exactly, you'd be floating around. Adding the sort of stage of space to mix things up kind of takes us further away from that, so you have to manage it really well. And although I don't hate the concept, I wonder if doing this, because he was talking about taking Kate and Marcus potentially off to another planet. I think this is a thing that maybe I prefer was potentially saved for a spin-off game or a book or something in the future, and that I think I would prefer that the mainline games stay kind of grounded on Sarah, but again, happy to be proved wrong. It doesn't get me super excited. I definitely prefer what they're doing with E-Day, which is like exploring the roots of relationships we already know, adding new context and stuff, maybe sort of like a twist or something that they could do with that. But and even thinking about a prequel, I mean, that, the whole notion of what a prequel can do and what Gears E-Day can do, I think is a whole other conversation we can save for another episode. But in terms of Gears 6, I was just mega surprised to hear him be super candid that like, we were going to space and all this. And I did raise an eyebrow, but I don't know. I mean, it could be good. I just think it feels a bit like, oh yeah, go to space. That's where stuff starts to get a bit extreme. Like you think of franchises like Fast and Furious and Mission Impossible. Oh, they're going to go to space. Tom Cruise is probably going to be on the moon soon. And it's like, it all just gets a bit further removed from what I loved about it all in the first place. But then one final point, when you play Hive Busters, so much of that feels like you're playing on an alien planet. So I was like, I could see it sort of working. And so I don't hate it, but I feel like my gut reaction was I'd rather they didn't. But yeah.
Did he actually say it's not just about other planets, it's about being in space? Is that what he said?
He said something. He said it wasn't going to be let me find it. Yeah, he said something about it not being about Mass Effect, so you're not going to be like planet hopping from place to place to place. So my assumption was from that they would sort of just create a new setting, almost give you a new planet.
Yeah, it clarified this didn't mean that Kate and Marcus would be hopping between planets.
But maybe go to a moon
it would just
or
be
something.
Technology to get off Sarah, so the goal seemed to be just a new place or planet to raise the stakes, which, I mean, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not being fair, but to me, like, sort of jumped out. I would probably need to sit and think about this a bit more, but what jumped out to me was it was like, I don't know, like Gears of War always seemed to me like this story in which these characters are sort of trapped in this burning building, and it's like there's one way out and that's through the front door, but it's blocked up by all these monsters and we've got to get through it or we're going to die in this burning building. And then to have space travel and things like that, they're just like, oh, and by the way, there was a back door that was open the whole time. And it was like, why did we not go out and use it? It's just a little bit like, we could have just left and the species would have been fine. Like, to me, like one of the central tenets of sort of the grander storyline of Gears is that the human race has literally become an endangered species. So, like, if your species was going to become endangered and you had sort of established space travel, send some people to another planet and just start at least having sort of like a fallback plan. If this all goes to shit, at least we have this. Maybe they've had that the whole time and nobody's just spoken about it. But like, yeah, it just seemed to sort of undermine the key of what Gears is to me a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I say, maybe I'm not being fair.
Yeah, exactly. It gets away from... It doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. Like, there's lots of great space games out there, and the concept I don't hate, but is it right for Gears? My gut was trepidation, like, maybe you shouldn't do this. But if they released a spin-off game or a book, like, set 100 years in the future, I'd be like, oh, cool, I'll check that. I'll see where the universe was going. But I don't know if I was ready. It
allows you to reset things in a way, I guess.
I don't know if I'm ready to see Marcus Phoenix strapped in a rocket going to the moon or something. It just sort of, it really gets away from the emotional
a rocket
beats.
with a chainsaw on it.
So it was weird. And
I mean, I guess if they play it as part of the campaign is, or at least the struggle to have made this work, and this has finally been achieved, and this is the last saving grace for humanity now is to just leave, and then they end up on like Super Locust Planet anyway. That would be hilarious. Like the locusts are twice as big. That's okay. That would, I guess, at least mitigate David's excellent point that made me hate the idea immediately as he started talking off. The whole point is that they're stuck and the locusts are underneath them and they're fucked. They'd have to play it off as like, we can finally do this, not, Oh, should we? There's this bloke called Neelon Busk, and he's got an idea to just fuck off to Mars. Should we just have a go at that? But then you could have a Doom crossover if they did go to Mars, I suppose. That'd be quite fun.
Yes, you're not wrong, and that is not the last time I'm going to talk about crossovers today, let me tell you.
Okay.
Cool. He did also, in that interview, the big question about who was going to survive, the canon choice about when you got to pick between JD and Dell. He was asked who was the canon choice, and he was quite coy about it, but he said that the plan was to always be led by stats from the players. So whoever got the most, whoever was selected the most would be the one that was saved going forward. And that they had specifically built Gears 5 to push JD out a little bit, because most of the game is Dell and Kate, and they wanted people to care about Dell, and they wanted people to not just go, oh yeah, of course I'm saving JD because he's the obvious hero, and then JD's also a bit of a, he says he's a bit of a jerk in Gears 5, which he is. And he said he didn't reveal, he seemed to imply that JD clinched it, but he said it was neck and neck and 50-50. It was not a clear-cut choice. Now again, whether we even ever see the result of that, I don't know. And I've definitely got, again, more thoughts about the route they might take. But do you remember, and David, who you chose for that Gears of War 5 ending choice? For who you were going to say?
I think JD. Yeah, I think.
I can't remember at all.
I definitely chose Dell, and I felt like it was because, again, JD was the obvious choice, and I was happy to see it mixed up a little bit.
I feel like that's what I would have done.
Yeah. And then I instantly felt really bad because then I remembered everything that's happened to Marcus, and it was just like, oh, okay, now he's lost his son as well. So I did regret it, but it felt like the more interesting choice. And yeah, I don't dislike Dell as a character. I think there was something there. Cool. All right, let's move on.
They've got precedent for doing that, don't they? So I'm sure there was some sort of community voting system for whether Carmine got saved.
They did
at the end of 3.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess they've got a history of doing stuff like this.
I really, just before we move on, I actually really hate. I mean, the Carmine thing, I don't mind. When it comes to like a main canon character for the story, I sort of hate that they do it. I think you need to write something, you need to believe in what you're writing, and you need to
I agree.
present it properly, not leave it up to the fans to choose, because it kind of, and I get games are interactive, but I would rather they knew where they were going. And this just kind of shows
on the
they
internet.
didn't.
I've been on the internet for a lot of years now, and I know that the people don't know what they want. So yeah, let's make a good story and tell us it, please.
Yeah, agreed. Right. Let's move on. As I said, main talking points of the show. We're going to talk about some multiplayer. As I mentioned, we live in this funny old age where even since Gears of War 5 came out, the multiplayer landscape has changed quite a bit. And then obviously it's changed even more since back in the days of those first online multiplayer games that we all loved and played together. But we're going to start with some memories first. Alex, what are some of your specifically fondest memories of playing multiplayer online? And this can be Gears of War, it can be other games, and this is in the early days, and then maybe anything more recently, you know, what you enjoyed back then, what you enjoy more now, how has it evolved, any way you want to take it really about how you have approached multiplayer gaming in the past and today.
I suppose, actually, I think I've probably mentioned this before, but one of my favourite multiplayer memories in gaming is playing Wingman on Gears 2 online. That was when I was at university in a house with 3 of my friends from high school. So we all moved up to Scotland together, which is where I met David. And when I first got there, we all had Xbox 360s, and we'd always get into these Wingman games where me and one of the guys would be on a team, the other 2 would be on a different team, and then, you know, against other players online. That was just incredible. The just like the sense of camaraderie with one other dude against the odds, trying desperately to bring them back up, because, you know, a lot of the time, I guess most people don't necessarily have an entire group of like 6 squad mate friends that they can play games with. I certainly don't, even if I lived with 4 of them. So multiplayer games that are geared towards like just one other dude that you can get together with and then take it on together, I'm a big fan of. But Gears 2 had a lot of great multiplayer maps. That's probably the most I've ever been into online multiplayer with that. That's probably around the same time I was playing quite a lot of World at War, which is my favourite Call of Duty multiplayer game. So probably the one I did the prestige in the most. That was probably more of an isolated experience of just kind of playing it by myself and getting really into it almost as a solo game. Since then, I suppose Overwatch was probably the next big obsession in multiplayer that I had, and I really was obsessed with that. I roped David into it, and he had a lot of friends from up his way that I kind of got to know through playing that we were in teams with over there, and I would spend a lot of my days at work kind of on the sly just watching YouTube videos on the meta and which strategies to use and all this kind of stuff. I loved that. I used to play that on every lunchtime during the pandemic with some friends from work, until Apex Legends came along, where David and I picked that up and played that obsessively for about 2.5 years, maybe.
Yeah, easily.
I think, yeah, my total game time on that ended up being well over like an entire month of my life. And that's, for me, that's the best battle royale experience that there is, and I probably will never want one again. I don't think anything's going to compare to that. I don't think I'm bothered about that anymore. I think nowadays I would probably want something more straightforward back, like the original Gears of War multiplayer modes, which we're obviously going to talk about a bit later. I don't generally hanker for it as much as I used to. I think my competitive edge has been dulled by my shitty aging reactions at this point, so that I'm just going to get battered, so there's no point in trying to engage with it. And I suppose PvE is potentially the multiplayer route I would like to go in more these days, just kind of taking on, a game in co-op with players or friends rather. So I think that's probably where I'm at now, although you have written, there's a little note about Marvel Rivals that you've written in here that I am somewhat enjoying that. I roped David into that briefly because it, on the premise of, hey, it's like Overwatch when we liked Overwatch. And it is. It's a complete rip-off of Overwatch, and it is good fun. Yeah. But there is just something about it that I don't know if it's actually got its hooks into us to the extent that we're going to now pick that up for the rest of the year or whatever. It just feels like, oh, it's cool they did this thing, and it's free, but I don't think I'm in that headspace right now. I would just rather play. I'd rather play a baseball minigame in Yakuza 5 for 70 hours or whatever it was I was saying earlier. Drive a taxi as Kiryu.
Yep. I completely feel you.
Can't pause an online game when your kid walks in.
No.
So
no.
That's the problem. That happened yesterday while David and I were playing Space Marine. My daughter walked in. She's 3. And there was a particularly gory cutscene kicking off that I obviously could not skip or pause because I'm online with David, and she just kept saying, oh, there's lots of tomato all over the screen. I never said that. I've never said that's what that is. She just came up with that all by herself, so I was very pleased that that's her first go-to is just tomato sauce.
Yes.
She does like ketchup a lot, so that's probably why.
Yes, she's still precious and safe and unspoilt right now. So that's good.
Yeah.
It is amazing to me that things like that, I imagine, are thrown up in dev meetings and stuff because it's important for people like us and the target audiences and who's playing these games. David, what about you? Multiplayer memories, Gears of War or otherwise, through the years, back then and versus how you feel today?
I suppose sort of interestingly, Alex has essentially echoed almost like sort of beat for beat my entire sort of online multiplayer journey.
Because we've done it together, that's why.
Probably, yeah.
And now we've both wussed out together and realised, I don't want to play with young people anymore. Let's just get in a corner together and kill some aliens.
I was sort of part of the OG Halo 2 crowd when Xbox Live was sort of in its nascent years. I interested to see where multiplayer goes beyond that, because sort of thinking back to what I was trying to think back to how it worked, and from memory I think so there was 5 levels of multiplayer difficulty. Sort of you could be level 1 to level 5, and you had to win 5 games in a row to go up to the next level. So you would start off at 1, and then if you won some games you would go up a level to 2, and then I think you went up to 5, and then you could also get down leveled as well. So if you lost a certain amount of games in a row, they would, and like, see, by modern standards that seems incredibly brutal in a way that I just don't know.
Well, it's like a ranked mode, but that's the only mode, right?
Yeah, I just don't think probably there's not like got the Call of Duty where things happen just because you look at a screen. So like I think the sort of the short attention span, it would not work in a modern setting. But I'd be interested to see sort of a modern take on something like that. Would be really, really interesting, I think. Gears wise, my multiplayer memories is almost exclusively Horde. Like, I was a huge fan of Horde back in sort of Gears peak era. I think it obviously spawned almost a sort of a mini genre in itself, and that, like, it's easy to forget that that's sort of kind of where it came from. And after that, Halo copied it, lots and lots of other
COD Zombies,
exactly, just started riffing on this amazing thing. And I think it was Gears 2 or Gears 3 where for me it really peaked, because they sort of introduced the shop mechanic where you could carry around this thing, set up a little base for yourself, put down barbed wire and things like that. And yeah, I just absolutely loved that. Call of Duty World at War, like Alex was saying, is something. Overwatch, it's interesting when you were talking about Marvel Rivals. I think for me, like, because you're right, it is such a great game if you're into Overwatch. And it seems to be everything that was good about what Overwatch was, because like you say, Alex and I had a group of friends that we would play it every day almost, and we were just and it's almost like, I guess for me the two things is I have got serious superhero fatigue. So the fact that it's Marvel is actually a negative for me at the moment. And also, Overwatch is such a time and a place. Like, it hit us at a time where we were young, playing video games every night. We didn't have responsibilities in the same day. Well, certainly I have fashioned my life. Yeah, I have fashioned my life so that I don't have responsibilities. But I just don't. I think that sort of time in our life has passed. I don't know if there'll ever be a time again where we sort of can turn on our console of choice and there'll be 6 friends ready to play. I mean, for one thing, that group of friends all play different platforms now. Some are on Xbox, some are on PlayStation, some are on PC. And I just think, certainly with my group of friends, that thing was such a special time, but it's gone, unfortunately. Apex Legends is probably one of the most important multiplayer video games for me. But again, battle royale fatigue, and see, like, with the sort of battle royale fatigue, as well as the complete and utter failure of Concord on PlayStation and the sort of relative success of something like Helldivers, I think the multiplayer genre is ripe for something new, and I'm interested to see where it goes, because I think it took them a long time, but I think video game developers are finally seeing that something needs to give, because people are not latching on to these sort of forever living games in the same way that they perhaps did in years gone by. So something's got to change. I just don't know what.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point about probably why we gave up on something like Apex Legends, is because it almost felt like live service mechanics became an insult to me.
Yeah.
Just like, so
absolutely.
fuck you for expecting me to be here every day.
Yes.
Like, you're not rewarding me for doing it, so I'm not going to do that anymore. And then you realise that you're just a product and it's not for you to have fun anymore. Says the man who played Marvel Snap for about an hour on the shitter this morning.
Great game.
But I think, we'll talk about it more later on when we talk about, how the new Gears multiplayer. But it does seem like we're coming back full circle on, can we just have a straight multiplayer mode, please?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, like both of you, I echo a lot of those sentiments. I think historically, it is funny for me because I didn't really play online multiplayer games until Gears 1. Like Halo 2, I played loads of Halo 2, but I was predominantly a split screen player or a LAN party, because just me and my brother will be playing, and we have photos. I'll try and dig them out. If I can drop them into this, it would be good. Friends of mine, 3 TVs in the living room, big fuck off CRT TVs, just turned facing the other way. That is something we did. That is peak. And that's never coming back. I mean, you can do it. You could do it now, but it's just no one's got the time and it can be bothered to do that. But
all the back muscles to pick up a CRT.
I won't walk for a week.
The size of that fucker, I ain't moving that. I'm not bringing that to David's house.
So it really was. I loved Halo 2, but I was never really introduced properly to the online multiplayer until Gears 1. And since then, really, Gears has always been right at the top of the list of my online multiplayer gaming. And I played other stuff. I played Call of Duty, and I've talked about Titanfall and stuff in the past, but at the top, always, it's Gears, back to back to back for me. I would play it on and off most days until the new game came out, because we had a pretty good run of release schedule with Gears. It was pretty much every 2 to 3 years a game came out. It's like 1, 2, 3, Judgment, Ultimate Edition, 4 and 5 across, 10 years. They were kind of spoiled, really. So I was constantly playing that. And Gears, thinking back to when I first started playing it online, that Christmas Day was my single longest gaming session before or since. Played it, got Gears of War 1 Christmas Day, introduced myself to the online gaming world, played for about 6 hours straight, stopped for Christmas dinner, then played for like another 8 hours into the early hours of the morning.
Yes.
And it's just, that has always stuck with me. And I think since then I've just been bonded to it. And those classic modes, and I suppose some specific experiences and highlights that stick with me is learning the ropes, because I wasn't au fait with online gaming. Me and my buddy Ryan, he lived just up the road from me. He also got Gears for Christmas Day. And I'm pretty sure it was Boxing Day the next day. We learnt the ropes of Gears by just doing one-on-one sniping matches, like private matches. We weren't going out into the world, and it was us just sort of hunting each other down, because that's what we'd done previously with Halo 2. Like, being snipers in Halo 2 was like our thing, and we tried to apply it to Gears. And although I don't really enjoy sniping as much in Gears these days, it was that's how I learnt playing. And I started to bond with it. And I think back to even little things that I really loved about the experience, which I don't really get anymore because I'm never in public chat anymore, is you'd be playing a round of Gears of War with your teammates and you'd hear their scream cut out as they got like chainsawed or something. Be like, blah, 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 yeah, they're over here. Look out, ah! And then it would cut out because they disappear from the public chat, and, they'd be off in the, the dead chat or whatever. That stuff really sticks with me. Things like host advantages, which you don't get anymore because we have like dedicated servers, but the original Gears of War, whoever was the host was like the god. You had better latency, so you'd always do better than
if they're fry on 99 cups of coffee.
And it's just always been really special to me since day one. And I think particularly me and my friend Ryan, but also my two brothers, like, I don't really play any gaming with my younger brother and older brother apart from Gears of War 1. Like, since Gears of War since Gears of War 1 came out, that's all we played. Maybe a little bit of Call of Duty. So that's sort of been a big part of our lives as well. And I think I mentioned it on our Judgment episode when that game launched. I bought 3 copies. I've never done that before or since. I bought 3 copies of Judgment. I had one and I posted the other 2 to my 2 brothers because we were living apart at the time. So we could all play Judgment online. And I'm pretty sure I'm in a very niche group of people who played Judgment online more than like I did Gears 2 and maybe even Gears 3. Even later when they started introducing things like the early days of loot boxes in Gears 4, I kind of embraced all that, even though it's not really looked fondly upon. I also, the Rockstar energy drinks for Gears 4 and 5, I bought multi-packs from Amazon to get all the ring pulls and the codes. This is stuff that I've never done for any other games. And I just think, broadly to me, more often than not, Gears is the one that when it comes to online multiplayer, I've always been focused on. It's the type of game that I went to sleep hearing the sound effects in my head, where you've been playing it so long, you settle down and go to bed, and then all you can hear is the gun sound effects. It made me
psycho.
Yeah, like it made me love shooters. I was never really a shooter. I preferred story-driven games, Resident Evil, survival horror, Metal Gear Solid. Gears is what really converted me to shooters, and it made me embrace squad-based play as well, which I'd never really done before. And then even when I'd play things like Call of Duty, I just played free-for-all. I didn't really play team deathmatch much. Gears is always where I focused on the squad-based. So I've got all these fond memories, and I just think, like you both, these days, it's not really my thing. I don't really have the time to learn the ropes of new games, and I much prefer to just sort of curl up under my duvet and take my time and play solo or go on horde mode or co-op campaign. And I do still hop on multiplayer PvP from time to time. I actually played a little bit of Gears 5 yesterday in preparation of this, and I do still love I love playing it, but I need to just kind of accept, and the only people playing Gears 5 right now are generally insanely good people with, their medals are like colours I've never seen before and stuff like that. So I can't really care about my rank at that point. So it's more just to enjoy the sort of experience. And Gears 5 broadly has that sort of moment-to-moment gameplay that it's always had. It's just maybe the way some of the modes are presented aren't as good and aren't necessarily what I want. But yeah, Gears of War multiplayer has done so much for my broad multiplayer enjoyment, and it's something that I'm very interested to see where we go in the future. And thinking about that, as we've touched on, things like we live in an era of cancelled Concords, Suicide Squad, Call of Duty, Fortnite, Marvel Rivals, all these live service, free-to-play black hole games. What are possibly some of our thoughts? What are your thoughts, David, on where you think, how does Gears of War E-Day and whatever its multiplayer mode is survive in this kind of era that we're living in? What kind of model can it go for? What modes? And as an aging gamer, what is it that's really going to hook you in and interest you? Any way you want to take it, really.
I think we are, and I'm interested to hear what you guys think. However, I have some faith in that they might do this right because with the prequel announcement and stuff. I think what I want from Gears is a sort of return to its roots. Sit back and think, right, what made this franchise special, both in a multiplayer and a single player perspective, and how do we sort of bring it back sort of to what makes it great, if that makes sense. And I think sort of if we look at the multiplayer landscape is ripe for something like this. It's done the old Call of Duty, it's gone off to space, and we've realised that it's got too big. We need to rein it back in a little bit. And I think that's where the multiplayer industry is going to go, because there's no more space for live service games. I don't want Gears to be live service. I don't want live service aspects. And I think the community largely with the Xbox would probably be the same. I mean, I think Halo has said the same, as run into the same thing. We don't want it to be like that. We would just want a simple, good quality multiplayer experience. And I think I've got a bit of faith that that's where Gears is going to go. And sort of the thing about Gears that, again, not being a massive online competitive Gears player, always was great is that it sort of did the small very well. And like, you know, like the small team versus team, it wasn't this big grand 100 players on a server battle. It was just a small close knit thing. The levels in my memory were also sort of certainly claustrophobic, if not smaller. And yeah, I think Gears just needs to lean into what is good and what makes it its thing, what's its USP, and sort of return to its smaller squad-based roots. I think would be something I would want to see from it. But yeah, the whole multiplayer industry is about to go through a big change, I think. So hopefully Gears can be ahead of that.
I think you've
not just follow the current trends.
You've hit the nail on the head. I think it only succeeds by playing to its strengths that we know. And Gears does have an advantage over something like Concord and even Suicide Squad, where it's a known entity. People know what it is. And even the reveal trailer for E-Day, that tone-setting piece, we know what they're going for. They're not changing. They're not trying to emulate Guardians of the Galaxy. They're not trying to emulate Marvel. This is Gears of War through and through. And so I do have faith in the multiplayer modes. And I'll talk about it more in a minute. But yeah, Alex, what do you think? This crazy multiplayer model world that we live in, how does E-Day's modes, whatever it is, how does it survive?
I think the key point about live services and how there have been failures in that space in recent years is purely because the space is already taken and the people who want that, their time is already completely invested in something that you cannot break into.
Yeah.
And because of that, the numbers can lie to ignorant publishers who think that because there are so many hours poured into these live service games that's where the money is, that's where the target should go, and that's just not correct. I know we are definitely in the minority of what we want because we are an older generation now. We are not, where the main money is to be made, but the main money is to be made by Fortnite. They're already taken that, so there's no point in trying to aim for that. And I was looking at the space as a video. I think it's Jack Frags or something on YouTube. He's got like nearly 700,000 views on it of the Space Marine 2 PvP, and loads of the comments. And again, that is not indicative of the industry as a whole right now. It's a very small percentage, but it's a big number anyway. But everybody in there is saying, this looks so much like Gears. I'm so into this. This is what I want, straight up standard multiplayer. So I'm completely with you in that I think keep it simple of what you're going to offer in terms of gameplay is how we want it. We want to feel like we've gone back to something that we all loved, and that will have a big hook into a lot of people. But I don't think aiming for something that has longevity is a bad idea. I think aiming for a superficial live service that is purely dailies, cosmetics, black hole is unwise and cynical, and people will look at it as cynical. But I think if you can tweak what a live service actually is, then you've got something potentially really engaging on your hands. If you bring a live service idea to something like Horde mode, where you say this mode will have an ongoing narrative, or it will have changes, and every 3 to 4 weeks we give you a new map, we give you new enemies, we give you new things to do. We'll put a little bit of a tie-in to the main story, because I think Space Marine 2 actually does that as well with the PvE. So I think if you base your PvE element of the game around, there will be updates to this, like tangible updates that are worth having, not loot boxes, but things like new maps, new scenarios, new enemies, new characters, new weapons or whatever. Keep that into this whole bubble, like Call of Duty used to do, where it used to bring out, here's a map pack, loads of new maps, loads of new guns, off you go, and people would lap that up. There's a reason that COD Zombies is still a thing. It can't be a thing that they spend development time and effort on if it hasn't evolved and if it isn't engaged with by the community. So you could add some of the elements into that for Horde mode as well. Objectives, different story parts, different dialogue reactions to certain things that are going on. There are ways to make people stick with your multiplayer game that aren't just dailies. And I would like to see them try that, but keep, the PvP and stuff to, here's a standard mode that we had, and maybe there's some new maps coming every now and again, because clearly that's what a certain section of the audience wants. And that audience is a Gears audience. They're already primed for what Gears is. So you bring that back to them, they're going to want it. But they need to keep people engaged in it, because it'll just end up like, well, I guess Gears 5, where it's just got nobody playing it anymore except the absolute hardcores.
I do think that's an excellent point, and I think there's a bit of so when you mentioned with Rocksteady and Suicide Squad, this sort of thing that jumped out to me, and I think because we've waited so long for a sort of new Gears game, there's a sort of little bit like Rocksteady in that, because I know you've played Suicide Squad, Kelsey, and you say it's actually fine as a game. I think for me, like trying to look at where the furore came for that, I think like it's not catering to your base. So like people waited so long for a new Rocksteady game. Rocksteady were known for a specific type of game,
100%,
and it's like we waited so long for this game. Then it finally comes and they announce it, and they're like, "Oh, we're going to make a live service game." It's like, no, this is not what we wanted. No. So I think people were angry at that more than the game itself, and I think there's a bit of that. A danger of that in Gears at the moment. Again, because it's been so long since we've had a Gears game, the Gears fans expect a certain thing. And I think to not cater for that and to come and do something completely off the wall and totally different would be a risky maneuver. And I would like them to remember who their fan base is, cater for them first and foremost, and then try and onboard new players with the sort of new and interesting ideas that Alex was touching on there as well. Yeah, that's kind of my 2 cents on that.
Yes. And as I say, I think Gears has an advantage because it is established. It doesn't need to introduce itself. I mean, it potentially introduce itself to new players, but, there's millions of people out there who know what Gears is, and I think the E-Day trailer says... I mean, unless, we may be surprised and we may come up with this really crazy, weird live service game that the trailer didn't point to at all. But I do not think that's going to be the case. This point, though, about how they handle this, and even not just the multiplayer, it's the whole package. And I've definitely mentioned it before. This has always been my biggest concern about Gears of War, because it's an expensive game. It is a standard setter in performance, fidelity, graphics, and the package of multiplayer, campaign, horde, any other bonus stuff that comes with it. It's a big, big deal. So I've got a lot of questions. They've got a lot of stuff they've got to juggle with this game. It's going to be free on Game Pass. How do they make their money? Do they completely separate out the multiplayer like Halo Infinite did? They want to bring back lapsed fans, but also justify the development of a rich multiplayer mode that's appealing to new players who might be used to other games, like Alex said, and the space is occupied. So how do you pull these people away? And I think potentially it's done by putting those strengths front and center, like we've said. Gears 5 was sort of testing the water with, it basically has seasons, but it's not like a live service. Effectively, you want anything, you just play and you unlock it as you go. Whereas now, if you fire up Call of Duty, you want the good skins, you've just got to pay for them, or you've got to pay for the premium battle pass and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Gears 5, you just play through it, and it was like, that was their, Alex, you talked about tweaking the live service. They didn't go that far, but that was like them testing the water of how do we make Gears fit in this new emerging way that people interact and engage with online multiplayers. And I quite liked it. I was keen to get to the end, to Sergeant level 50 or whatever it was, and unlock the big skin at the end. And it wouldn't cost me a penny because I didn't have to pay for it, and it was on Game Pass. So that was good. No, I don't hate that. They didn't really have the premium rewards, and you could buy Iron, but if you wanted buy extra stuff, you can. It had those options if you wanted it. That was always very separate from their season mode. And the thing I really hate about online games now, and I just kind of touched on it, if you boot up Call of Duty or Fortnite, I'm not a Fortnite player, but I have booted it up, you're kind of presented with multiple screens. Like, trying to find what you want to play on Call of Duty is a headache. And because they're all their own
hubs. The menus
hubs.
are so bad.
They're all their own hubs. There's multiple screens, and they're firing at you all this premium stuff. And whether that premium stuff is good or not is irrelevant. For me, like, I need it to be accessible. If they want me to play and engage with these online multiplayer modes, don't hit me with, 3 different battle passes. One's free, one's standard, and here's a premium one where if you pay extra and you get these rewards. Oh, here's what you could have won. Like, what's the fucking Price is Right? It's like, here's what you could have won if you did pay us for it. I do not want that. I want to be able to fire it up, and I want to know what I'm looking at. And they won't do this, but for me, I would love if E-Day took like and this comes from me playing a couple of games in the past year, and I think, so one was Alone in the Dark, and I think Crow Country did this as well. They have effectively a classic mode and then like a new mode. And so for like with Alone in the Dark, it was all based in the survival horror stuff. So if you played classic on Alone in the Dark, it didn't highlight the answers for you. You had to read the files to get the answers. So it's like, oh, that's how it used to be done. So I think if you're going to apply that approach to multiplayer, where, you've got to cater to all these people who for the past 10 years have been playing a, sensory overload Call of Duty and Fortnite, and they can find their way around those menus in a heartbeat. Or you've got to cater to me, who's just used to firing up multiplayer and seeing, Warzone, King of the Hill, Team Deathmatch, 2v2. There we go. I want to dive right in. And that accessibility for me and that core Gears experience in its own screen, like, kind of kept away from the shops and the special events and promos. I don't mind them doing all that stuff. I need it to be separate. And I'm not a hardcore gamer anymore, hardcore for it. I've migrated to the casual. And I think old fans potentially are the bulk of people who are going to be there day one. So you might get someone coming back to... And this happened with me with Call of Duty. I didn't play Call of Duty for like 7 years. And then I fired it up and I was like, what the hell is this? This is not the Call of Duty that I, played in 2010 or whatever it was. And I didn't know what to do. So you're going to get potentially people coming back to play Gears who may not have played since Gears 3. And if you hit them with the sensory overload of what it is today to boot up an online multiplayer, you may lose them sort of at the first hurdle. And I think you have to respect that those lapsed fans and those original fans are going to be the bulk of people who were there day one for you. And then if the game gets good reviews and good word of mouth, you'll bring in some of those curious new people who might take their time away from the CODs and the Fortnites and stuff or whatever. So yeah, go on, David.
You've put something into my. You two both making excellent points has put something into my head that I think is probably pertinent to this. Is we're talking about like the games industry for many years has an obsession with the size of itself. So like Alex was talking about naive publishers looking at numbers and things like that and thinking that we need to chase these numbers that are probably unattainable. Back when Gears was sort of in its heyday, the games industry was obsessed with being cinematic, and then would get these endless sort of press releases that video games are the biggest entertainment thing on the planet, and look how much money we make, blah 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 blah. And then we look at things like Fortnite, the Maddens, the FIFAs, all these games that are bringing in massive audiences and holding them and making lots of money. I have this sort of growing suspicion. You were sort of describing yourself as a casual gamer. I'd like to push that back on that a little bit, because I have this growing suspicion that actually those people that are coming to Fortnite and FIFA and Madden aren't the sort of target demographic of who gamers are.
Yes.
And they never were and they never will be. They have these games that they come to, and you may get some drip off effect of that. There may be some people that play Fortnite and then go looking at other games, but the vast majority are going to play Fortnite and nothing else. And then when Fortnite dies, they'll go off and do something else. The people that, like us, have been here the whole time, I think have been largely sidelined, especially in a multiplayer context with like live service and stuff like that, because the people that make the things that we love have gone off chasing an audience that I actually don't think is real in the sphere that they're operating in. And I think hopefully the video game industry is going to realise. I mean, Square Enix are one that are perpetually bad for this. They put a game out, and because it doesn't sell 5 bajillion copies, they're like, it was a failure. No, your expectations are just wrong, friend. Like, and I think that is sort of something that the games industry needs to reckon itself with. People, Alex, you're talking about, and you're absolutely right. Like, audiences such as ourselves, we are the minority. Most people aren't playing games like we play games, but we are the people that are looking for different types of games, and the people that in the massive audiences, like I say, that are playing these other types of games aren't your audience and never will be. And I think we just need a little bit of a realization of that. Maybe we're getting there, who knows. We're going to have to get there if we want to survive.
Yeah, I think I heard a statistic that there's like 6%. We're like 6% of what the gaming audience actually is people like us who just want new games and different games. So I think back on the live service sort of tangent, I think a big part of what kind of puts me off Marvel Rivals, and probably you as well, is the multiple menu screens and currencies that Kelsey was talking about, because I think you text me about it and I said I genuinely do not know what any of these currencies are for, and I'm not going to learn because I can't be bothered.
That's a failing of the game instantly right there.
Yeah, big time. It kept saying, like, I think you unlock it, doesn't it? It says claim this, and you press all the buttons and it doesn't show you that you've claimed it, and then even when you do, it's just a little thing in the corner and I don't know what that is. So that, I don't want to see that, but also I think the key for a live service or an ongoing experience at this point needs to be trying to keep elements of it finite, because I don't want to have to see. I don't want there to be no end in sight. I don't want this to be like I either carry on with this forever or I'm done. So that's where the things like seasons and whatever can come into play, where if you have a season that goes on long enough and there's a finite end to it, and then your time is then freed up to go do something else for a bit and give us a break, understand that there are other people than you, and that we can go off and do something else and come back to your game in 6 months when you've added more to it. Doesn't sound like an enticing model, I'm sure, for people who want money, but it certainly sounds enticing for the people who are going to spend the money. And I think more people need to understand that it doesn't have to go on forever, but you can keep people engaged for a long time if you make it worth their while when they do come back. Not just
spot on.
Here's some snow because it's Christmas. Oh, also you can dress them up like Santa. 10 quid, please.
20, mate. 20.
Yeah, sorry, 20. Yeah.
Yes.
You're selling yourself cheap.
Spot on. And I mean, also to just kind of circle back to the other thing you said, Alex, about how you kind of tweak maybe what Gears is to help it fit in with, I don't know, a modern way of playing. I keep saying it, but like, as an aging gamer, like, I don't really want to learn anything new. And I can sort of apply that to every single aspect of my life. But I'm coming to Gears for what I know, and if they want me playing it every day, I need those modes that I've been playing for almost 20 years with the new maps, and then cool, some new gameplay tweaks. And something which really irked me about Gears 5 is, and I don't know if either of you ever engaged with this much, but it launched with a thing called arcade mode, and this was unbelievably, it was what I played with the most. So basically what it did, it had the classic Gears modes, but then they implemented a Call of Duty style kill streak, and things like headshot mechanics were easier to pull off, and you would get score for the kills and the headshot and stuff, and then you'd get a number of points, and then you could you could spend that on, okay, now I can equip a flamethrower or something like that. There was no airstrikes or anything, but I think it was mainly focused around weapons. And I was like, wow, this is the classic Gears feel, but there is a bit of a twist here that's freshened it up enough, but not moved far away enough from what I liked. And I could still play the other modes if I wanted, but I found myself, my brothers, and a few friends, we played that mode loads, and I was perfectly happy with it. And then they took it out because apparently not enough people played it, which really annoyed me. So if they want to stretch beyond it a little bit and they think, look, we can't just do the same thing, fine. But like I said before, they could make it as literal as classic, and then not modern or whatever it is, but give me that, make it accessible, make it clear. And if they want to charge for premium skins, I mean, I'm kind of fine with it. I think on that, as long as I'm not forced to, and it doesn't feel like you say, like they're insulting you. I think now more than ever, Microsoft owns like everything now. So, and Fortnite is so successful because of the licensing. That's why it's so successful. Like, the game is straightforward, but the reason it's so successful is people are spending, like, say, 20 quid to play a Spider-Man or whatever. And I don't necessarily want to do that.
Mariah Carey.
Yeah. But I do think, and Gears is definitely more open to this because they've done it. They've had Run the Jewels, they've had Terminator, they've had WWE, Batista, all this stuff to make it fun. It's never felt insulting with Gears. I think they managed it quite well. And I like a huge Run the Jewels fan. And when they came to the game, I could not believe it. And it was just like, I loved that. And I would happily pay a few quid if they want to. But don't put that at the forefront. Keep the classic strengths there. Halo, I think, takes itself too seriously at this point and could maybe learn a thing or two from Gears. You look at the Halo Battle Pass, and I think the craziest they get is sort of cat ears on Master Chief, and that's it. There's no real... I mean, we had Halo armor in Gears 5 as well, didn't we? We had the Halo Reach characters. So you can see that Gears is open to it, and I do see them maybe opening those floodgates a little bit more. I just want, and yeah, maybe like I'd quite happily take some joy out of playing as Lilith from Diablo, or a Fallout inspired armor, in Gears of War. Maybe I would pay for it because it's what I like, and because they have to justify the production of this game and it being free on Game Pass. I'm not going to hold it too much against them if they've got to put that in there somewhere. I just think it cannot be, but this is all in your face. Make sure you spend all this money all the time. That's where they're going to lose me. And like I said, my time is limited. I want to jump into mostly what I know, and that's what will hook me. And if they want to go, look at all these great ideas that we're literally just copying from every other game, then yeah, I'm not so sure. I think, Although that being said, you both mentioned it. I do think there probably will be a battle royale mode if development allows it. If they're gonna copy anything, that may be possible.
Probably. So is it Razor Hill? That can be the storm coming in.
That'd be quite fun. They could probably
yeah, that actually works. Yeah. They already have a storm that kills you in the lore.
Can I what was I going to say? Carry on. I'll jump in after.
The thing that I just wanted to reiterate from what Kelsey was sort of bringing up earlier, and it's the learning of the ropes. I think that's one of the key elements to all of this, and you need to make those ropes reachable.
Yes.
I can't learn the ropes if the ropes are 50 feet above my head because everybody else has already climbed those ropes and cut them off. That's a weird analogy,
I
but
got it. It worked.
We're here for it.
Jumping.
If your game has evolved, for 6 months and everybody has learned all the metas and has got all the skins and got all the whatever, and I'm coming in as somebody who has to learn 6 months worth of this, not going to bother.
Yeah.
Don't give a shit.
Yeah.
I'll just go play someone else. Yep. I've got Yakuza 6 to play. See you later.
Exactly.
So I think the ropes need to be learnable in a fair way. And that's very difficult to do if you're trying to keep something as a live service and you want to get money off of people. That is difficult. Yeah. But there needs to be a way to make it fair and attainable. And I think I trust Gears may try that.
Yeah, I kind of agree. And actually, Kelsey, you made me feel a little bit better about it. But because largely the sort of skins stuff in Gears has been pretty good. That I've got a bit of a love-hate relationship with it, and I really, really have quite a strong dislike to the argument when people say, "Oh, it's all cosmetic. It doesn't matter." It does matter, and it matters. It does matter, and it matters because, like, if
they know it matters too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you look at games like Fortnite, and again, we keep mentioning Fortnite, but games like Fortnite, and then what Battlefield became and Call of Duty has become, like Battlefield and Call of Duty were serious war shooters.
Yeah.
And then because of skins, like, you're not telling me that the existence of cosmetic only skins that people can sell does not end up dictating game design. And I think Call of Duty and Battlefield have become games that, I guess I'm the minority, fully happy with that, but have become games that I don't want because they've gone so far down the skin rabbit hole that the design of the game has become this sort of cartoony version of what it used to be. And I would be slightly concerned about when companies go off chasing the cosmetic stuff, that they then start redesigning aspects of their game to fit with that model. But you're right, Gears up to this point has done a pretty good job because everything they've brought in has fitted with Gears rather than changing Gears to fit with the thing that they want to do.
Yeah. I think, as long as they maybe don't start putting Crash Bandicoot in there, I'm kind of okay with it. And they don't, they added a lot of gestures and emotes and stuff, but it never really felt, part of, it seems like Fortnite, the only thing people care about is getting those emotes and dances off. Whereas Gears, it's like, they're there and there's little vocal calls and stuff, but it's never really felt like the core experience, and it hasn't strayed too far. The Batista thing, like, it sort of fit with it. It was a bit of meta fun. Batista always wanted to play Marcus Phoenix, so this was his way of doing it, and you could play through him as the campaign or in the multiplayer. I like that. It worked.
Imagine if they take all that out. If they just go, you know what, we're not having emotes, we're not having skins.
I mean,
just imagine that. That'd be if they just kept it pure.
Yeah.
Hopefully that would be celebrated through the streets.
Yeah.
As look at this.
I would be all for it. And I think, as I say, Gears does have on its side that it is established, and maybe that's a risk they take. But at the same time, free on Game Pass. It's an expensive game. They got to make their money. So we will see. In terms of making their money and increasing reach, there is a big question. Again, it's something that comes up quite often. Alex, Gears of War E-Day, Gears of War, should it go to PlayStation? Because obviously it's going to come to Xbox, it's going to come to PC. Should it go to PlayStation as well? And why or why not? Whichever way you lean. What do you think about this?
Yeah, sure. Why not? I think there's nothing wrong with being a fan of a brand. I am a fan of the Xbox brand. Have been since the original. I don't have any stake in it financially, apart from the money I spend on it. So I really don't care what they do to get money or what they do with their IPs. As time's gone on, and this isn't me trying to say, I'm more mature than all the dickheads who care about brands. Maybe I am.
You are.
But as time goes on, I just like good video games. Yeah. And I buy all the consoles. I probably always will. I really don't care what the platform is. If the platform is the best platform, objectively, then I gravitate towards that. And I personally feel that the Series X is the best platform, objectively, because it has multiple games I can suspend, lots of backwards compatibility, Game Pass with actual day one releases. Like, it has the stuff that I value. So I have a loyalty to it for that reason. But I don't have a loyalty to it so much so that I don't want a game to happen on a PlayStation that I also own anyway, that somebody would have to pay full price for, whereas I can play the game for my Game Pass subscription. Like, I don't know why anyone would care about that. And if that allows them to get more revenue for the game, that means they don't have to make it all about skins and emotes and that kind of shit. Yeah, go for it. I don't know why anybody would care about it staying on Xbox unless you work at Xbox and you are that tied to keeping it a core part of what your brand is. But the words coming out of Xbox these days don't suggest that they care that much about that themselves. They want their Xbox brand to be omnipotent and omnipresent, so that it's everywhere. I keep seeing it all over my social feeds. All these Xboxes are an Xbox or some bollocks like wording that makes no sense really. But if this is an Xbox, then it's made by these people, not Microsoft. So why would I care if that PlayStation could also be in it? I don't care. I just don't care.
Yeah. David.
So yeah, bring it to PlayStation.
Yeah.
I dare you.
I double dare you.
Yeah.
David, what do you think about Gears of War finally making the jump to PlayStation?
Yeah, like when I was thinking about this, reading through your running notes, I was like, the question isn't should it come to PlayStation, because it's going to come to PlayStation. I think as far as I can see it, like that ship has sailed now, and like I basically just agree with everything Alex has said. So I was thinking, like, how can I add to this conversation? Sort of linking back to the Game Pass model stuff. I think that the sort of, again, a slight concern I had with Games Pass is that we're talking about assumed audiences that maybe don't exist. I wonder if Microsoft has built the Game Pass model on an assumed audience that wasn't big enough to support what it wanted to be, and they've sort of realised that, which is why they're sort of trying to, well, they've raised the price a little bit and they're trying to branch out and go onto PlayStation and stuff like that. And I think they have to do that if we want to keep having Game Pass, which is a great service as it is. We need to accept that there's going to have to be, compromise isn't the right word, but there's going to have to be some fundamental shifts in the sort of Xbox landscape when they're going to have to do things like put it out on PlayStation. I agree with Alex. I've got no skin in the game. I don't care. From a caring about the video game industry perspective, I hope this doesn't signal an eventual exit from the hardware business from Microsoft, because I think the industry, to be healthy, needs to have competition. And I see like PlayStation have got a great track record of when they think they're comfortable and ahead of the game to just sticking their fingers up to their fan base, whether it's get a second job for your PS, your other PlayStation and stuff like that, and they just doing like odd business decisions. And I'm starting to see that creep back into sort of the arrogance of the old PlayStation seem to creep back into it because it feels comfortable and safe, and the sort of exit of Microsoft from the hardware business would only encourage that. So I hope that doesn't what that means. But yeah, coming to PlayStation, yeah, go for it. I don't care. Good games are good games, no matter what platform they're on. So yeah, people should get to play Gears if you've got a PlayStation, because it's don't want to miss out on that shit.
Yeah.
And then
imagine actually caring. Imagine being furious about it. I mean, look how fucking long this has existed. Look at these words. Look at this little twat here. Imagine caring still. Like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's spot on. It's a broader industry thing. It's nothing to do with Gears of War. I think generally, like, exclusives, right? Because there's a couple of ways you can look at this. Exclusives, to me, they're not always a bad thing. I think the notion of an exclusive can boost the appeal of a game, and in some cases even its development. And this can apply very specifically. It can apply to the AAA, but very specifically to indie games who, incredibly limited resources, and to get their game out the door, if they can get support from somebody like Xbox or PlayStation to get their game out the doors, and they're developing for everyone and their resources are stretched, that will help them. And then they've also got the marketing power of one of the big players to help push their game. And there's a couple of games I always point to when I'm trying to make this incredibly intelligent point, and those games are Stray and Scorn, and they were two platform exclusives, sort of vice versa for each platform that came out roughly the same time. And I don't care what anyone says, neither of those games would have had the headlines that they had either of them been multi-platform. The reason everyone was talking about Stray was because it was a PlayStation exclusive and it had PlayStation marketing behind it.
Yeah, good point.
And the same thing happened with Scorn, and there was a lot of marketing behind it, and it was day one on Game Pass. It's the reason I played it. I wouldn't have bought it. And so exclusivity helps those indie games. Yeah. Now, when it comes to the big games, here's where like the sort of opinion changes slightly. And I think let's take Halo as an example. This is a franchise, I was going to say in dire straits, but let's say in flux, right? In terms of giving the franchise a boost, I mean, I think there's a couple of things I think should happen. And I say this as someone who's never worked in the gaming industry, but I've worked with IP before. I think number one, Master Chief Collection, I mean, it should have been on PlayStation years ago. I mean, I do not understand who else is buying an Xbox at this point for the Master Chief Collection. It's way overdue. It should have been on there before Infinite launched. And if they had done this, maybe they could have launched Infinite as the free-to-play mode as they did. And because you potentially introduced a bunch of new people to Halo on the other side, if you like, they might have gone, oh, maybe I will pick up a Series S, and so I can play the Infinite, because I've just been like knee deep in Halo, which I found out I absolutely love, playing the Master Chief Collection on my PlayStation, and it potentially would have brought some people over. And we're now 3 years from Infinite's launch, and I think honestly, just get that on PlayStation now. I don't think anyone else is buying an Xbox for Infinite either at this point. The Halo show flopped. The franchise is in repair mode. You know, apparently they're doing a soft reboot. They're switching to Unreal. There's rumours of a remake of Combat Evolved as well. But I think get Infinite and Master Chief Collection on PlayStation yesterday. I do not understand it. And when Switch 2 launches, it's apparently going to be PS4, Xbox One sort of S level of power. So it could run a Master Chief Collection. Get Master Chief Collection on there as well. And then what you could do is your new thing comes out, whatever that is, the Halo remake or the new Halo game. If you want to keep it exclusive for a year or two, sure, fine. But then eventually it should go over. Alex, you've said Xbox now, they've made it very clear. They want to be omnipresent. And I think that's the way to go. You know, they've always been a sort of a victim of being ahead of everybody else and maybe being too early to the game. And Microsoft has had this. And it's that. PlayStation are going more multi-platform as well. So I think that would be the right move. I think as for Gears, this Phantom collection apparently I hear is still real, and if that's going to launch before E-Day, my honest opinion is it should probably launch everywhere. Now, all right, maybe not day one if you really want to be so protective, but I think the ship has sailed, like David said. Get it everywhere, get that collection out, get Gears fans excited, introduce new people to the franchise, and then when E-Day comes out, if you want to have a little bit of exclusivity for a while, then, yeah, keep it on Xbox or PC for a year or two, and eventually it can go over like some of the other big players have. That, to me, feels...
Do you not think that also alleviates a lot of the criticism about what Game Pass has in terms of value anyway?
Yes.
So it's like you immediately elevate Game Pass's value to the people already on your platform or people tempted to join your platform because
they haven't got to buy it.
They're getting what you've just brought out, and then also you can just shut up all the people who say but you're not making any money to sell it. Well, but we've brought it out on the biggest target platform because more people have PlayStations. Yeah, that's where the people get charged, and then anybody who's loyal to Xbox, bada bing.
Free. It's also great in that if you're on PlayStation and you want to pay £70 for a game that's made by Xbox or Microsoft, go for it, and then eventually you're going to do that like 4 times and think, well, I could have just spent £15 a month and had all these games on day one, and maybe that starts to turn the tide ever so slowly. But while they're trying to turn the tide, at least they're still making money, and hopefully these games are profitable so they can keep going and stop closing studios and getting people off.
Completely. And I think, the funny thing about Gears E-Day as well, and I think this is this is like maybe a spanner in the works of my idea, is it is a prequel. You could, in theory, launch this everywhere without alienating anyone. You don't necessarily need to introduce people to anything. It's an introduction. It's an introduction to the world.
Good point.
It's starting at the beginning. And I do wonder if that's their plan. And that would make sense to me. I wouldn't be mad at it. More people playing Gears is fine by me. And, there's other caveats that's, we could spend ages talking about. This is, all Xbox games are on PC. As I said, Sony is going multi-platform as well. Steam and Xbox both look like they are going to be outsourcing their own operating systems for well, we know there's a third-party Steam Deck coming from LG. Is it LG? Who makes the Legion Go? Whoever it is. Lenovo, yeah.
Lenovo.
And there's these rumors like, maybe you could get Samsung making an Xbox, so you have these different versions of the console. So it's everything's going to be anywhere. And so games being locked to a platform don't make sense. All it's about really is just protecting the ecosystem. I don't think that's going anywhere because everybody's too invested. Nobody is abandoning their PlayStation or Xbox ecosystem at this point. And I think what Xbox is doing is their way of avoiding shutting everything down and pissing off, 100 million people or whatever it is, and potentially having to refund billions of dollars. So everything is changing. These are all these caveats. David, you talked about the industry shift. And I think, but at the end of the day, long way to a short point. I think Gears is I'm not sure such a big franchise like Gears is helped by permanent exclusivity at this point. I don't think any franchise is. Like I say, indie games can get a nice little bump for it, but yeah, I think many people who've been out of the Gears loop because they were on PlayStation, they would jump on it in a heartbeat. I know people personally that have never played Gears because they've never had an Xbox. They'd be straight on it, and I think it should go, whether that's day one or whether it's at some point. I think it's happening. It's just a matter of when. So, and I'm excited to sort of see how they handle it. I mean, yeah, I also don't, like you both said, I don't care. I actually encourage that it gets put everywhere. So, yeah, and I'm sure there's a lot of very smart business people, in their very well-deserved jobs that know what they're doing and won't make any decisions to fuck it all up. But yes.
I mean, I don't want to keep coming back to this. People are going to get sick of me talking about it, but look at Yakuza. Yakuza 0 came out, introduced everybody on every platform eventually to a series that was locked to PlayStation that was quite obscure, and look at it now. Yep. They're bringing out 2 of those fucking games every year on all the platforms because they started again for people. They remastered all the old ones. They then started releasing the new ones everywhere. It's not a difficult model to figure out, boys.
Yeah. Agreed. Cool. Right. Before we wrap up today, we do have a few listener / Twitter write-ins. I put a tweet out asking everybody, what was your favourite memories of multiplayer in Gears? A few lovely people did give us some replies. We have from here, Mark McMahon, patiently waiting.
Mr.
McMahon, patiently waiting for work to finish. So I get home and search 8-round Warzone matches and play for hours with my friends. Best gaming memories for me that I'll never get again.
Don't say that, buddy.
Yeah, I was going to say.
You could get it again.
There's still hope.
Unless he hasn't got any friends anymore, like us, so that might make sense. Getting old, man.
But yeah, no, I completely get it. I mean, I would say maybe I was more of a... When Gears came out, I was at uni. Maybe I was at uni. But yes...
Yeah,
these are the games that took me away from my studies, and wanting to get home and play these games, and actually having hours and hours to play with my friends is, it's not something I have much anymore, but there's still hope. Gearshead84 says, my favourite one is definitely clutching on Gears of War 3 Old Town with my old brother. The enemy team had 8 lives and we was the last 2 alive on our team since we ran out of lives. We completely went silent and started destroying the enemy team, especially when I got the digger. It was amazing. We went back to back fighting everyone and covering one another and moving on as one. When we won, the enemy team showed love and we showed it back. The habits I gained from Gears 3 is the importance of callouts and positioning. Yes, I like this one because he talked about the and I've definitely experienced this because playing online multiplayer, I've definitely found myself getting angry in the past, but you can tell when you hit that sweet spot with a game, with an online match where it's close, and even if you lose, you can applaud the other team. They've got what they deserved and everybody can have fun together, and when the right skills get matched up together and everyone has a good time, this is the magic, and that's something that I've got on Gears a lot in the past. So
I can remember David and I saying to each other after, particularly on Apex Legends, if we just got outdone in a tense fight by another team, we would still come out of it being like, that was brilliant. How fun was that? Yeah. Not even thinking about the loss, just because, as you said, the matchmaking just peaked and it felt like an even fight that could have gone either way, and it was just this, slightest margins that cost us the victory. That is exhilarating. And then when you win those, especially like Gearshead 84, when he's backs against the wall and he's just got his buddy in tow and versus an entire army of dudes, there are a few better feelings.
Yeah, that's the thing that multiplayer does better than really anything else in video gaming is sort of creating that sort of moment where everything just comes together. You're just like, yeah, that was awesome. And as he was describing his playing with his it was his friend, it was his brother. I was thinking back and I was thinking the exact same thing. I've got so many moments where exactly the same thing. It's just this memory of where it's just like everything clicked and you were just sort of felt invincible for that short amount of time. It's great.
Yeah, because it's all you, isn't it? It's not a scripted part of a set piece or of a game. It's you did all of that yourself. You created that moment all by just your skill, and teamwork and things like that. It's awesome.
I do.
Yeah, it's like when Alex and I would like sort of breach and clear a room in Apex Legends and just what's the word I'm thinking of anyway? Just take people apart when they just didn't stand a chance. It just feels so good. You're just like, I nailed that, and that's amazing. Yeah.
It's funny because, and I don't. When you're playing a game every day, and I would have this, you'd have to resign yourself sometimes. Like, this is not a good night. This is not a good night. You'd have 6 games in a row, and it's just like you come away from it like, why do I do this to myself?
Big time, big time.
And then you play it again another night, and you feel invincible, and you smashed it, and you had a great time. So boom.
It's like sports, isn't it?
Well,
really?
yeah, it is.
It's like watching sport. It's not always going to go your way.
Yeah. Boomy Mike says, I don't know if it counts, but I never bought Xbox Gold until Gears 4. I presume he means Xbox Live. But back then I would spend hours...
I was going to say, did that exist for Gears 4?
Yeah. But I would spend hours playing Horde mode on previous Gears alone and with my brother. I remember not sleeping at night at all, both trying to beat Wave 50 on Gears 2 and Gears 3. That was pure fun. Horde mode memories. Alex, did you enjoy Horde mode?
Yeah.
Loved it. Yeah, absolutely loved it. I can't actually remember who I played it with. It's obviously not David. I think David and I tried 3 for a bit, but I felt that had gone a little bit... I'm slightly different to David on that, where I feel like the shop stuff kind of added too much to it that I can be bothered with.
It was the cards that broke me.
Sure, yeah. It's ironically...
2 felt like the purest example of it.
It completely isn't, and I played some of that Horde mode with some of the First Aid Spray folks earlier this year, just for fun, and I was like, this is, you just said pure. It is so pure, and I forgot what that was like, because Gears 4, primarily Gears 5 is where, like, I played Gears 5 PvP, but the Horde that's what I've sunk all my hours to, and in spite of all those card systems, I played through it to the point where actually that was what I became used to, and I did... I think like a couple of the achievements are like max them all out to 15 and stuff like that, which I think I've got. And I'm like, all the Horde achievements, I'm nearly there with them all, because that is where I spent most of my time in Gears 5. And although I loved it and I still do think it's great, when I went back and played that pure mode, I was like, oh, there's something about the simplicity of this where I haven't got to worry about this other stuff. Yeah, and we played it for ages, and I had some really fun stuff on that. So yes, so that does count. Boomy Mike, pure fun, absolutely love it.
We'll let you have it, Boomy Mike.
Yeah, we'll let you have it. Cool, right.
I was quite I'm enjoying those Twitter handles, because I was like, they're you can tell. Poor old Gears Head 84. There's absolutely no question whether he likes Gears of War or not.
Yeah,
exactly.
And Boomy Mike's is just good fun. Do you think it's Boomer related, or he's just a big Boomy guy?
Unless his cat's called Boomy. He's got a cat in his profile picture
there. He's also got 2 eyes in his name, so maybe he's a big fan of Takashi Miike, the director. He likes a bit of Itchy the Killer, which I'm on board with, big time.
Or he's just really big into the Wii, and that's how
Boomy Meek. Yeah, that's his me. Speaking of socials,
yes.
We're not on Bluesky, are we?
Oh, so I was meant to ask you this before we recorded, because I got my outro stuff here, and I was like, I don't know where to direct people to. So what I'm going to do is, when I get to that, say where it is, because I don't know. Because are
you going to put a Gears Intel on?
So
on
we are.
Bluesky?
So Gears Intel is still on Twitter. I have an account on Twitter. I don't use it. I've moved to Threads. I think have you both moved to Bluesky? I know David's on Threads with his Scotland photography, pissing off all the Scottish people. But yes, we can read that out in a second, because that does pretty much bring us to the end of this episode. Another trip down the coghole, our journey through some of the Gears of War multiplayer talk. For now, because it definitely won't be the last time we discuss multiplayer on this show. In the words of a wise man, if you enjoyed what you heard today, and even if you didn't, please do give us a review or rating on your podcast platform of choice. Give us a subscribe or like on YouTube, and help us take Gears Intel to the next level. Your support is always appreciated, and believe me when I say we have plenty more to come for the show and the channel as we progress through 2025. David and Alex often work as a duo, as some of you well know, so let me know what's coming up. David, it's difficult to know. Who is the official host of A Winner Is You? Really, is David always opens the show, so kind of feel like if I want to say what's coming up for Winner Is You, David, why don't you tell us, and then Alex can talk about it.
Yeah, David's definitely the host voice.
Yeah.
I feel like I've got the mad ideas in the background.
Yeah, your colour. Yeah.
You're the Donkey Kong screecher.
Sure.
You'll take that.
I did screech that.
Yeah.
I did screech that.
I actually don't know what's going to be up next. So on the last podcast that we recorded, which was Indiana Jones, I think, we said we're moving on to Dishonored. However, I think we've just decided that we're going to cover all the Dishonored games, which may then slow up the recording of that podcast. So I think Alex had mentioned something about an Xbox 360 Top 100 podcast.
Part 2. Kelsey, do you want to do a draft?
Yes.
Draft, which we haven't done in 6 months.
That's the next one then. Let's do
That's
that.
the next one. The draft will be back.
2010, that'll be the 2010 video game draft.
Fabulous.
That'll find vintage.
Yes, do go and listen to A Winner As You. Alex, Video Game Hall of Fame, what's coming up or what's just come out?
David was on the most recent one of that will be out very soon, if not already, by the time people hear this. He came on to pinch hit for Steve, who had not played a game from the year 2024. So in our sort of de facto Game of the Year episode, where we nominate 2024 games to go into one of which to go into the Hall of Fame, David picked, annoyingly, my choice of Balatro in place of Steve.
That's the correct choice.
Yeah, I know, exactly. I had to settle for Indiana Jones, but that was fine. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with whoever wins.
Yeah.
So, yes, 2024 games will be the next episode of the Video Game Hall of Fame, featuring me and David for one time only, unless Steve doesn't play any games this year either, and he'll be back for the next one. That'll be at VG_HOF or on Twitter, or at VGHOF on Bluesky.
Yes.
To find that one.
Fabulous.
I have another one as well. Brief, like many years ago now, I started messing about with a YouTube channel of my own, and I was thinking about Balatro because it just keeps coming up, and I've sort of fallen back down a Balatro hole recently. So I went and put in the seed for Kelsey's first ever win in Balatro, and I've made a video of me trying to do play Kelsey's seed. So if you search,
did you win, or is that a spoiler?
That's a spoiler. So if you search on YouTube for the Balatro seed challenge, there's a channel called Stick Flickers, I think it's called, where you can see me try and beat Kelsey's score.
Perfect. I'm sure I'll put a link in the description as well.
Yeah, do it.
Yeah, there's no escape from you two on every single show going. David also cameoed on my Games of the Year episode of a Gaming Roma podcast.
Talking about Balatro again.
Yeah, Balatro getting its praises.
I was not aware of this.
Well, I said to David,
I need to hear this.
I said I need to send a message to you and Alex, and then I was talking to David about it, and then I just didn't send a message to you, to the group. And it's because I rushed the episode because I went on holiday. So yes,
yeah, fair enough.
I was sitting listening because I was like, Alex hasn't mentioned it, so I was sitting listening to the podcast thinking, Alex is going to turn up at some point. What's he picked? And then you said,
and he's here now. And I come.
Yeah, and then you said there was a couple that didn't manage to get their thing in on time.
I just forgot.
That's Alex.
I just forgot. I spoke to you about it and then went on holiday. Yes, so that
I like both of your voices. I'm happy to listen without mine in the way.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's out. I don't know what else I've got. First Aid Spray. Wrapping up the games of 2024. We also did a horror slant games. So games of the year 2024, but with a horror slant. Me, Steve and James did that. So go and check that out. That's out everywhere as well. We also, and I do want to plug this, it's a few weeks old now, but we did our Resident Evil 3 anniversary, Resident Evil 3 Nemesis anniversary podcast. First Aid Spray did a retrospective review 3 years ago, but I wasn't on that one. But now for the anniversary, I was on. So me, Sherwin, Si, and Steve got to talk about Resident Evil 3. And that is a banger of an episode, if I do say so. We've obviously done our Resident Evil 2 one, and I'm sure you have said this, Alex. I might have even referenced you on the podcast where it's look, Resident Evil
Nice.
Resident Evil 3 is a better game than Resident Evil 2 in so many ways, but it doesn't mean it's not. That doesn't mean it's my favorite. Resident Evil 2 is my favorite, but when you look at what they crammed into that game, it's absolutely obscene. So yeah, go and check that out. And obviously Sherwin worked on the board game as well. For those who are fans of board games, he works at Steamforge, helped develop the board game version, so he's got some great insight too. But yes, so plenty of content to keep you busy. Thank you as always to my co-hosts. You can find the main show on Twitter, as I said, at Gears_Intel. You can find my personal kind of more broad musings on Threads, which is at KD_Buck. David, where can people find your main ramblings these days?
Come find me on Bluesky these days, super smiley. We spoke about Overwatch and how Marvel Rivals is back like peak Overwatch. Yeah, Bluesky is sort of old school Twitter. So that's where I am at the moment.
Yeah, I've outright refused to join it, and now I'm the only person that hasn't joined it, and I'm sort of living out in the cold on my own. So yeah, I don't know when I'm going to have to sort of
definitely get Gears Intel on there.
Yeah,
because
I think I'm going to have
audience
to.
of hungry people to get involved.
But yes, Alex, where can people find you? Is that Bluesky as well? Yeah.
Yeah, probably. I think that's just at Thrillix.
At Thrillix.
Yeah, he's got a good name on there.
Finally got it. Got in there early enough.
Good. Yes, that about does it. Thank you both. Thank you to all our listeners. As always, we will be back again very, very soon. Till next time, remember the fallen.
Me.